A not so pretty conclusion to the 22 season for the Hurricanes as they fall to Pitt in a big way at home. However, here we go. Roll up the sleeves and get started on 2023. There's no time to waste, and Mario Cristobal and staff are doing just that. We got Cam Underwood here. Of course, we've got him here. He's the guy that makes this show roll every Wednesday night, 7 o'clock Eastern time. Get settled, enjoy it, but don't be too selfish. Bring some friends along with you. Let people know out there that we talk Miami football with Cam each and every Wednesday night. Cam, how you doing tonight?
Good. Can't complain. So, we're on to recruiting season, which is pretty much been my focus since 8 weeks ago. So, and even, talking to some other people at the game, other people, journalists, bloggers, people with names that they're like, oh, yeah, you waited until then. Like, I was on that train even earlier. But, hey, regardless of when, we got completely focused on talent acquisition and roster building as opposed to result this year. Here we are. So let's have some fun.
At the point that this transfer portal started to become a big thing about 2 off seasons ago, I think most of the players we saw involved in the transfer portal early on were either guys that weren't getting playing time, weren't getting opportunities, either because they just weren't that type of prospect, or they played themselves out of a good situation as a big-time prospect, and they just didn't have the opportunity. Other guys beat them out. Or it was a quarterback situation. This dude's a really good quarterback, but he's run into a great quarterback. He wants to play. He's gone. Mm-hmm. Now we see all sorts of movements by big-time players. And Avante Williams, obviously, he came to Miami with all sorts of accolades and high praise and recruiting rankings. And, where do you stand on this decision? And surprised, predicted it?
Avante Williams was a player with a lot of pedigree. He's Lorenzo Lingard's cousin. Lorenzo Lingard, former 5-star recruit, who committed to Miami and then subsequently transferred to Florida after getting injured here. And that injury pretty much derailed his career to this point. Nobody's really heard from Lorenzo Lingard again. I mean, he's been on the roster at Florida, but he hasn't done anything. And for, a top, 5 stars, he was a top 25 player in this class some years ago. Kind of a shame. But anyway, Avante Williams is his younger cousin. He ended up picking Miami over Florida also. And Florida fans famously had their Tay Day celebrations set for him to commit on his commitment date. And then he chose the University of Miami. And that was a big win. His Twitter handle is @slowdownboy7 because they would tell him he would run so fast that everybody in the neighborhood and everything say, hey, slow down, boy, damn, because he has that kind of speed. So, legit 4.3, sub 4.4 guy, and it just never came together for him. He got suspended a couple times here, fell down the depth chart even this season again. 27 tackles, an interception. The interception was an incredibly athletic, leaping, twisting, turning over somebody, yoink, spin. He didn't return it for a touchdown, but I think he returned it like 20-something yards. But he made a really nice play on that. And so you saw the flash of ability. Had a handful of PBUs also, but he was definitely down the depth chart. And when you have James Williams, who, I don't think that his safety or his future is at safety, but he's pretty decent at it right now. And then Cameron Kinchins, he played the best of any safety in America this season. So you're going to be behind those guys. But particularly when you have Williams, you move him down to the box on third down, next guy up to be, in the backfield, not the second level, is going to be Avante Williams. So he played tons. He was also the reason why, every game, Avante, like look at the stats he put on the Chiron there, like number 2 safety, 7 in Florida and 45 overall national. And that was lower than his cousin. I mean, that's the kind of pedigree this kid has. But you remember every single game when you would see Jacoby George do the jersey swap thing on the sideline before and after every punt. they did that specifically so that Avante Williams could be on all of those specials, right? Because they both wear 15, and you cannot have the same number. You can have two people on the you can have 2, 3, 4 people on the roster wearing the same number, but they cannot participate at the same time. They said, look, we're going to leave Avante with the 15, and we're going to, switch Jacoby into 36 or whatever, other 5X jersey they just put on over his things and then took it off. And then all of a sudden he goes on offense. Oh, I'm 15 again. They did that so that Avante Williams could get more playing time. He was the impetus for that move. So this is a player that has lots of talent, but maybe some baggage off of just in general, and some things that are keeping him from to this point realizing that talent all the way. So even he tweeted out he's a COVID junior, so that's a redshirt freshman, so he has 3 years of eligibility remaining, even though he's been in college for 3 years. And like all the players who are in the portal and who are going to go into the portal from Miami or elsewhere, I wish him the best. I'm saddened that it couldn't have gone better for him here, because I do see the preponderance of talent that he has, but the development of skill and just some of those other things was not able to happen. So he was on the fringe of my radar for transferring. He was not on my list, this infamous list that I've kind of written and talked about with some friends offline, because I don't want to put people's names out there. He was not on the list that I wrote, but probably number one. Like, he was the first one past the cut. Like, if I was going to extend my list by one, and I could, because like I'm the one who did it, and like there was no cap to the number or anything. If I added another player to the list, it would have been Avante Williams. So him leaving did not come as a surprise or shock. But like I said, wish him the best.
Obviously, if there are great players, great talents available in the transfer portal, it's kind of like the NFL draft. You've got your needs list, and then you've got your, we don't care, we're loaded at that position, but that guy's awesome. You go get him. But if looking at the needs list, what would be your priority list position wise for the Canes?
This is funny because with some of these same people after the game, some other journalists and bloggers, I was talking about this very question. So good that you brought it up. My number one is wide receiver, because we went over the portal last year of receivers of consequence. Yeah, we got Frank Ladson, but like, like he's a 3 or a 4, honestly, But yeah, everybody who we went after, who went somewhere else, was incredible. Juice Wells from James Madison to South Carolina, awesome. Zay Flowers from U School in Fort Lauderdale was a developmental prospect, but he went to Boston College and turned into a great player. Kicked the tires on that, and remember, he put up that thing, well, I am going to stay at Boston College, and da-da-da-da-da. He like was insinuating that like, no, I was not considering going elsewhere for NIL reasons. Okay, buddy, sure, whatever. But Miami was one of several teams who tried to get him. That didn't happen. He's incredible. Both receivers at USC, Jordan Addison, Mario Williams. I think there's another couple. I mean, but just like any player at receiver that we really went after of consequence to be a game changer, we missed on, and they were awesome elsewhere. And if you think about it, bro, Tyler Van Dyke did video game numbers with Charleston Rambo and Mike Harley. Like, and Mike Harley's a practice squad guy, and Charleston Rambo was the number 1 overall pick in the XF, NF, USF something L. So it's not even like you had, prime Jerry Rice and Randy Moss mixed with Calvin Johnson and playmaker Michael Irvin coming off the bench. It wasn't even like that, bro. But you can see even a halfway decent player in the portal, how that affected things. Even if you go back before the year previous to that, KJ Osborne is about to get another paycheck in the NFL, right? So I think that raising the level at wide receiver is absolutely integral. You have to have that. The one that's maybe a little bit more controversial that myself and these other gentlemen were talking about after the game as we were waiting for Mario Cristobal to make his way down to the interview room was quarterback. Because you have to think, are you sold on Tyler Van Dyke? And are you sold on Tyler Van Dyke returning to Miami? And those are two different questions, by the way. Are you sold that he can do the job, especially with the offensive line still being developmental at best, because you're going to put all these youngsters in and have to grow them. So I know that, we're in the spot of getting from atrocious to just bad is going to be a step forward, but he got hit so many times that he injured his shoulder multiple times. So are you sold? So are you sold on him that he can do the job? And the second was, are you sold that he's going to stay at Miami, which that last thing about getting hit and sacked may impact his decision and everything. So where you go from there, are you just going to turn the keys over to Jake Garcia? I know that Jakari Brown, he had a decent moment at Georgia Tech, but 136 yards and 89 rushing is about the ceiling you're going to get from him right now. So are you going to turn it over to him? Williams is coming in a true freshman. You're going to turn it over to him? I don't know. So I think quarterback is the one that's sneaky, especially when you consider the fact that I know that Tyler Van Dyke is evaluating all of his options. I think that the NFL is off the radar for now based upon this season, but there are many, many schools that would take him and make him their starter, and it would be an upgrade, especially moving into next year. I've said on here before, when we had Jaden Rashada committed, that, going to SMU, pairing back with Rhett Lashley, that's a no-brainer. That's one that I know is out there. Another one that might be, I don't know, better, but definitely at a higher profile because they want to run a pro-style offense and utilize tight ends and take some vertical shots on play action when they can. Notre Dame. And, I think he would be a great cultural fit there. I think that could really be a boon for the Golden Domers as well. And I know that that's another option out there for him. So it'll be interesting to see if he sticks around. And then obviously, what does Miami do? And I said it even on here last week and the week before, say, hey, maybe Miami has to go get a Jake Heaps type, a roster filler, a floor raiser kind of a guy. Maybe not, the ceiling is, or the ceiling is the roof, like Michael Jordan said the one time, not just to make it an immediate national champion, but like raising the floor a little bit. Maybe you go get one of those guys. So wide receiver number 1, quarterback probably 2. It depends on who's out there on offensive line, but you're going to need linemen too, because it just takes time. Everybody's not going to come in and be a day one superstar on offensive line. Sometimes you need a little bit of that grown man strength that comes at 21 as opposed to 18. That functional strength. So maybe you kick the tires there. Linebacker is another one, but we got 3, maybe 4 coming in this class. And then cornerback also, because Tyreek Stevenson's already said that he's going to NFL draft, and he played pretty much every snap until he got ejected for targeting last week and everything. So, I mean, there's definitely areas that you can go and probably will go at the top of the roster. So you're going to try to hit the high notes, but you're also going to look at depth across the roster through the portal as well. But I would say, again, wide receiver 1, quarterback 1A, just because of the uncertainty about Tyler, and then almost best available pretty much everywhere else.
James Hennessy, we appreciate the super chat. Thank you so much for that. Talking about one Drew Pine at Notre Dame, saw him play against USC this past Saturday night. Played his heart out, but has limited ability. He's not a great quarterback by any stretch. He would be a good number 2 at a top 10 school. Again, the guy played his heart out, but he's just not the guy. And obviously, he lost the job to Tyler Buckner originally coming out of camp, who's, I don't think, going to be a great quarterback. They got CJ Carr in the mix, right, at Notre Dame?
Yeah, he's a 24 kid. That's Lloyd Carr's nephew, 24. Who reclassified up.
Yeah.
Well, he did reclassify to 23, as in this recruiting class. But again, are you going to make a true freshman starter the Messiah for them, or you get a guy with the floor and the ceiling of Tyler Van Dyke, which both are higher than anybody on their roster right now?
Yes.
Not saying it's going to be just him, but I know that that is an option for him, and they're looking to upgrade that room also. Would he have the job? Probably not. Like in that, the seminal, everybody or every job is open and everything is for, But I believe that he would go in there and win that job. That would be, pending them bringing in another former starter from somewhere else. And then you're really like, going back and forth and you're scoring every round like a, championship fight. Oh, is that a 10-8 because he got a knockdown? Is that a 10-7 because he threw 2 interceptions in that scrimmage, things like that. But yeah, with the room as it is, even with CJ Carr coming in and everything, my full expectation would be, if he chose to go there, that Tyler Van Dyke would win that job 100%.
Based on the obvious lack of implications of the Pitt game and based on you discarding it and moving on, and the way you open the show and the way I opened the show about the Pitt game, I got to think that you filed that away about as much as any, especially a conference game, as any in recent seasons. But that said, was there anything in that game of note that made you feel better about anyone or probably worse about anyone?
Donald Chaney Jr. got in the game for the first time all season. After, Cristobal was, let me be judicious here, after he was nebulous regarding Chaney's availability throughout the entire season, he finally got on the field. Didn't do too much because Miami didn't do too much on offense, but that was good to see that. But again, you have more injuries and everything. But it's really just, again, looking at the young guys as being the foundation moving forward. Wesley Besainth, Leonard Taylor, James Williams, even, who I still think needs to move down to the second level, if not, line. Cameron Kinchins, you start to see some of Daryl Porter Jr., but for a guy who was like second team All Big 12, not really enthusiastic about that. So hopefully he takes a big step forward if he can. And yeah, looking at all the young guys really, and the way that they at least fought, and just kind of going from there.
I checked in about 3 times. Of course, there were more meaningful games going on. That's your job to watch Miami football start to finish. Me, I pick and choose, and checked in about 3 times. And obviously I'm checking in 28-0, checking in, etc. But I'm looking at the box score now. I see the defense totaled 0 sacks, 0 tackles for loss.
Yeah, they got the ball out real quick. I was really surprised on that because there were several plays that were tackles for loss, that were called tackles for loss, that were marked tackles for loss on the official score sheet and on the yardage. And then they disappeared. I even wrote about that. I was like, I don't know what, no, there was several, I saw it. There's a tackle for loss there on third down, literally 4 loss, in the backfield. So I don't know where they went. I don't know. But all of a sudden they're 0. So, but even with that being said, when you make your bread and butter as much as you can from the defensive line, being 8th in the nation in average number of sacks per game, average sacks per game. Sorry. When you're making your money off of that and they're unable to do that. Oh my God, shut up, phone. Thank you. Sorry, I was trying to put it on vibrate.
Breaking news or something.
No. But when you everything is based around the defensive line, and they aren't able to be as impactful as previous games, it's going to be a problem. And I know that I've seen other people talk about it. D-Money on Kane's Insight, their website founder, he wrote about it, how there's just been a disconnect between the front four and the back seven of the defense all year long. And yeah, when you're 115th or whatever in passer rating allowed and 8th in sacks per game, it takes a real special kind of terrible in the back end to have that be the case, because you're getting pressure. You're creating a havoc up front. Like, Miami's one of the best teams at doing that. With a rotation of guys. It's not even just one guy. There's lots of guys doing lots of that. But it wasn't impactful when in terms of the pass defense. It was just, like disjointed performance across the board. So that was really not great. And then, it eventually kind of snowballed. And this was pretty much the second worst defensive game of the year behind Middle Tennessee State. It was second most total yards, second highest yards per play, second most, it might have been the most chunk plays allowed because they had so many in the run game, whereas Middle Tennessee State's chunk plays went for like 80 and 90. So there were fewer of them, but they were even more explosive than the many, many, many explosives that Pittsburgh had. They had, I leave the stats open for this very reason, but if I click over very quickly, big plays, they had 17 plays of 10 yards or more, 7 passing, 10 rushing out of 63. So 27% of their plays were explosive, were 10 yards or more. That's wow, and they only faced 8 third downs all day long, because they didn't even get to third down, because it was just, okay, like on a first down or on the second down, we're going to get another first down because we're chunking you. I mean, that's better than 1 out of every 4 plays of offense that they ran went for 10 or more. Like, it was just, they just gashed over it, over and over and over and over and over and over again. Shout out to Marshawn Lynch on that one, but it was pretty bad. And I don't think it was for lack of trying. It was just, some scheme, some, you're playing, and back to playing Ryan Rigoni at linebacker. And I get it, senior day and everything, but like, he doesn't have the athleticism. I know that he has the want to, but like, if you want to get there, but you can't get there, and you're not big enough and you're not strong enough when you get there, like, it's just, it was all kinds of bad. And it was just Miami walked down the field on the first drive with Tyler at quarterback. Then you get a blitz down in the red zone. He gets hit, falls on his shoulder, throws an interception, which Servassier Dennis almost took back to the crib. And that was the last that we saw Tyler Van Dyke. And he was trying to, he immediately, he got tackled. He's rolling to his right. So he's tackled, boom, on that shoulder, goes into the medical tent, comes out of the medical tent, tries to warm up, throwing it 5 yards. And he's all, shut it down, buddy. Shut it down. And again, it's what I talk about, being in shape versus being in game shape. Like, because, I know Cristobal, like, God love him and everything, but every week he's talking about, oh, well, Tyler was fully cleared and, he went through full practice. Y'all didn't hit him. So that's not game ready. If he's not able to, and I'm not advocating for going live and hitting your quarterbacks during the week. Let me get this correct. Okay, let me get that said. But if he's not able to withstand getting hit, he cannot play. And we saw that. Like, he can't. And against Florida State, he didn't even get hit when he hurt his shoulder. So, you can sell that noise to somebody else that he was healthy then. But every week is, he was fully cleared and everything. Da, 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 da. Did he get hit? Did you even hit him with the pad? You know, the wide receiver release pad when you try to get through and, you hit them, or the running back pads when they're trying to do ball control, where the coaches have it and they whack them, the whack-a-mole kind of thing. Did you even go through that with him? Well, no, we didn't want to chance it. So if you wouldn't do that, and you got an awesome defensive line on the other side, like, say whatever you want about Pittsburgh, they have incredible defensive line. And what's his face? Kalijah Kancey, who's from Miami Northwestern, was just announced today as ACC Defensive Player of the Year. And they have 11 tackles for loss and 7 sacks in the ball game. You think that they're not going to get to him? So you're going on a wing and a prayer that a quarterback who is, as durable at this point of the season right now as paper mache is going to make it through? Come on, bro. And yeah, like when he was out there for that one drive before he got hit, dealing. Loved it. You're going vertical. You're hitting some crossing routes. The run game actually got a little bit going because the pass game got a little bit going. You can see why. Because as soon as he got on the field, you're like, oh, this is clearly the best quarterback we have on the roster. It's not even close. But if the wind blows a little bit the wrong way at him right now, then all of a sudden he's not playing anymore. And that's the thing what we got.
Norman, appreciate you being here. Thank you so much for recognizing. Excellent show as always. We appreciate that contribution, sir. And, after reading this next super chat, I always say that I read all super chats. However, we may have to put like a dollar amount minimum on anything I will read.
Say it. Go ahead. Put it up there. I have a feeling I know what it is. Go ahead.
I think there's only been 2 super chats in the history of all these channels and all the great super chats, and we appreciate them all, that I've not read because they were more like, you don't say these kind of things.
Right, yeah.
We're talking slander, we're talking personal attacks kind of thing, not against me, but just, hot button kind of stuff. But this,
I knew it. Kylo Ren, yes.
Ohio State lost. Haha, Marco Canes. Now, of course, my obvious response to that could be spewing out facts and records. I could actually.
That was their first loss of the year and all kinds of things like that. True. Mm-hmm. But for this native Michigander who grew up as a Wolverines fan, that is the one game of the year where I am an unbiased. I turn into like a 12-year-old. I am just unbiased, or I'm super duper biased. Like, yes, it is. Hey, maize and blue all day long. And yeah.
I did the quick math the other day because whatever the conversation was, whatever led me to this, I think it was a bunch of spoiled Ohio State fans that want their coach fired because he's 11-1. Come on. Anyway.
But 0-2 against Michigan.
1-2 against Michigan.
Oh, he did win the first one. But hey,
look. Can you imagine if Mario Cristobal was 31-2 against the ACC and lost 2 games to Florida State?
Well, even Miami and Florida State don't make it as all-consuming as Michigan and Acorns.
That was going to be
so. But when you and that's the thing, right? If you make that your everything and you don't win that game, that'll get you run out of town. At the end, that's what happened with Lloyd Carr. That's what happened with John Cooper, 2-10-1. I love John Cooper. What? When he coached Acorns, I knew all the time, we're light work. And he was there for almost 15 years. But that's the one, apart from anything else. No. Did we beat them or did we not? And that is the determining factor on a successful season, and especially in terms of that particular game that is always played final week of the year. So if you lose, then it has increased importance towards derailing what you've been building for the last 3 months. It's a little crazy, but that's kind of the cost to beat a boss when you're in that situation. And look, like I said, I remember, Gary Moeller had an off the field thing, but still, Lloyd Carr, same thing. Rich Rodriguez, he just kind of burned the thing down.
Fired because he lost to Ohio State.
Huh?
Lloyd Carr?
Yes, we could. Yes, he did at the end. Yes, because Tressel was up there, and then all of a sudden Michigan was losing a lot, and then all of a sudden instead of 10 and 11 win years, it was 8 and 9 win years, and you're losing to them. Absolutely, 100%. That yes, and they gave him the emeritus role and said, "Yeah, okay, cool. We're gonna get back towards being better, which includes winning at least one more game a year, which has to be against O State." And he wasn't doing that. Brady Hoke was terrible, but also lost to them a million times. It's primary on the list of evaluation both ways.
Yeah, of course it is.
But yes, I would take 31-2 against the ACC. Please, thank you.
I will only extend this one other further point, just because I took the time to add this up in my head, because I was trying to explain to a certain fan base what they need to appreciate, even though I hurt and I hate losing that game. I would say at a earlier age, as much as anybody on this planet, but in growing a little bit older, taking things more into perspective, it's a little bit different. But 10 seasons, Cam, Ohio State football has played 142 football games in the last 10 seasons. How many do you think they've lost?
12.
142.
12.
14. 128 and 14.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, what do you want? All right. We got James here. Miami and Florida State also aren't in the same division. James, we appreciate your super chat.
Correct.
You're supplying me with information that you got to realize is the most elementary information that's stored in my brain. Yes, I understand that.
Okay. But, I mean, to his point, you can lose that game and still achieve a goal, even with that result, going a different way. So, yeah, I mean, look, again, I want to beat them every single year, but growing up in Michigan, man, it's a different thing, bro. I try to tell people that, all these debates about, best rivalry. I mean, it's to the point when Bo Schembechler, and we're going to get back 100% on Miami after this one point, when Bo Schembechler was the coach and the game was in Columbus, he said, or went out, I think, on either his weekly radio show. I think it was his weekly radio show on Michigan radio, and said, "Cool, if you're going to go to the game, what I need you to do is go on I-75 South." And those of you Floridians, yes, I-75 goes all the way up from down in Florida to Canada. I've driven every mile except for, I think, 44 miles of this road from end to end, bro. I've driven all of it. Trust me. It goes through in and out of cities, goes through Atlanta, trust me. But he said, go south on I-75, get off at exit 4, which is Lambertville, Michigan. I have a good friend who's from Lambertville. Stop there, get your gas, get your food, everything that you need. And that will take you a full round trip from Lambertville, Michigan to Columbus, back to Lambertville, and refill your tank and then continue home. So you do not even support the economy of the state of Ohio as you go to that game. This is how all-consuming this thing is. When I was in elementary school and we had trips because Detroit is 45 minutes from Toledo. It's right there. They actually fought a war for the Toledo corridor between Ohio and Michigan. It's deeper than rap, guys. When we would go to the Toledo Children's Museum or zoo or whatever, I had plenty of friends whose parents would not allow them to go because they were not going south across the state line into that other state. I'm trying to tell you, it's different. And I get that Miami and Florida State, it is, and these are even to this big age in my 40s, I'm sure that some of my classmates from then have never been to that state. I know for a fact a couple of them, when we were younger and we would take family trips, if they're going to New York, they would go through Ontario, Canada, Niagara Falls and drop down, or they would go to West Michigan, Indiana, Kentucky and go around. Trust me, man, it is different. I'm trying to tell you, but that's that about that.
Kim and I could probably do a separate podcast and we could trade stories like this.
Yes, so many different things.
I was taking my kids to wherever, I think it was Florida at the time. We were in the Detroit airport. I noticed my daughter, she's all of 7 at the time. Have I told you this story?
No.
Maybe. And I noticed she's doing this. She's like this. We're in the airport. We're going like this. And I say to her, "What are you doing, Tay?" She goes, "I don't want to breathe Michigan air." I'm 7 years old. I didn't tell her to do that.
Even though, you're out in Romulus and everything. Trust me, different. But anyways, we digressed
is.
for a good 15 minutes.
The very last thing I'll say, this will only take 15 minutes, to Cam's point on the Ohio State side of this. And you got to figure, think of all your great rivalries across the country. If you're dominant in that rivalry, you would think you would start to take that for granted, feel entitled, be like, well, they're not. Ohio State won like 17 out of 19 before the last 2 years. The paranoia is still like around campus. Like there are signs like, what did you do today to beat Michigan?
Yes.
You practice every day for Michigan. You do something every day to beat Michigan. It's the countdown clock still in the football facility. The game's in 314 days, down to the second. All of that. It's all the time. You X out M's all over the state. All of that.
Hey, man.
Yeah. All right. Yes.
Yeah. Anyways, we digress. Sorry. Back to Miami.
This is related, but to the Sunshine State and all the rivalries there, because I'm intrigued to get your big picture take on Florida State, Miami from this perspective. Let's go back about 5 years. Florida State's been bad up until this season for about 5 years. 2017 was Jimbo's last year. 2017, of course, was Miami and Mark Richt's best season. Florida had some bad seasons, hired Dan Mullen. He threw a notch, had 3 really good years, and then the rails came off. Thinking about the results on the field being most important, but everything that surrounds the perception of where these rivals are in the pecking order of the state intrigues me, because based on recruiting rankings, based on transfer portal additions, all of that, when you put it all together, it seems to be constantly, like every couple months, almost every few weeks, changing. Like, oh, Miami hired Mario. Well, they're in the lead. Look at Miami's gaining all this in the recruiting rankings. They're in the lead. Oh, well, Florida State won these games. I am fascinated by these 3 schools because they're all brands in the sport, and they've all had great illustrious paths in the last 40 years. And it seems to be constantly shifting.
Yeah. It's just you're trying to one up, your opponents and everything. And it's sports are cyclical. They're going to just go up and go down. And, I think every team has had the upper hand, but also has maybe missed some layups along the way. And I don't think that anybody has been very truly good, championship caliber in that run. So like Miami beat Florida State in 2017 in Miami's best game and Miami's best season, and beat a down Florida State. Florida State goes 9-3 this year, and they beat a lot of bad teams, including Miami. Now they beat the dog out of Miami by 6 touchdowns, but when you go back and look at their path this year, it's like, 5-7, 6-6, 4-8, 5-7. Like they beat a lot of teams that they reasonably should, but even with that, if Miami is looking at talent acquisition and everything as the path forward, like there's a path towards not being as bad on the field as we were this year. And I think that every one of the 3 teams in the Big 3 has capitalized on part of their rebuilding plan eventually. Dan Mullen, he kind of caught lightning in a bottle with Kadarius Toney, Pitts, and Trask. Like, cool. All right, that's a 9-10 win season. But that got them out from the 2 4-win seasons in a 4-win span or 4-season span also.
Mullen, to his credit, he had 3 really good seasons. They won New Year's 6 games, Orange Bowl, whatever the other bowl was, Peach Bowl.
Okay,
and that, he did have 3 really good years.
It's more pointillistic to me, but even if you want to expand it out to 3 seasons.
Yeah,
fine.
It was a
Sure.
thin,
Right.
He had elite passing tack.
Right.
Build. Yep.
But, Florida State, Jordan Travis is not going to play NFL or quarterback in the NFL, but he's darn good and incredibly elusive. And he's a more athletic version of what De'Aaron King did for Miami a few years ago, where he covered a lot of errors along the offensive line. And Norvell, for all of his faults as a coach, he does scheme up explosive run games, and he gets guys in positions where they can really do damage in open space. And so you augment that by a quarterback who, if things break down, I'm just going to go run. So he's not a great passer, but he's gotten better. He as a passer is analogous to me as Rihanna as a singer. She is not a great singer. I love her music, the production and the style and everything. But as a vocalist, she's probably average at best. And I think that that's true for Jordan Travis. He's not a great thrower, but he runs that offense well. And since he can be like exit stage left and be gone, and you saw it against Florida, because I obviously live down here and I have friends who went to and are fans of every school in this state, and my friends who are Florida fans were like, bro, like, we thought we had him on so many different occasions, and all of a sudden the guy's gone and goes and scores, and I think that was a thing that kind of helped them. And I already talked about Miami in 2017, which was a lot of smoke and mirrors and both sides of duct tape during that season, but it still got the job done. So I think that everybody has the ability to step up. It just needs to really be consistent. And I think this is where Mario Cristobal is really looking to do a full rebuild and not put a Band-Aid on a flesh wound, where it's like, yeah, we can get 8 or 9 wins, but like, are we going to be that kind of program, or are we going to will our way to that kind of season? Which is fine, but I would rather be the program that can achieve that annually, perennially, every year, as opposed to a team, which is where I think almost all 3 programs are, where they've covered the deficiencies insofar as they can have or 2 good seasons, but it's not really systemic all the way through that it lasts. I think that's why you see all 3 schools still searching for that program building coach that can maintain this for a while. I'm not even saying it has to be, Miami winning, 5 championships in 11 years. It doesn't need to be Bobby Bowden at Florida State being in the top 5, 14 years in a row or whatever. It doesn't have to be that, but I mean, the bottom has fallen out of all 3 of these programs recently. So you're looking for somebody to raise that floor consistently while also being able to reach the ceiling higher as well.
All right. This next segment in the show is going to be brought to you by Kylorin here. We've got, thank you for the super chat, 4523. I don't enjoy that super chat quite as much as the Michigan fan who gave me a super chat for 4523. So that eased the pain a little bit.
Right, of course.
Lauren, okay, here we go. I live in Columbus. They X out all the M's. Ohio State is soft. They gave up 5 plays of 45-plus yards. I love you, Mark, but your team got embarrassed. True, got embarrassed with a bad 7 or 8 minutes at the end of the game. I'm not going to call it a blowout start to finish.
Right, because it wasn't, but
yeah, they melted. Yeah, we're not going to go into Ohio State. We're here to talk Miami.
Right, but to the point, Miami's allowed 5 games of 40 or more points. 3 times they've allowed 45 points this year. And I don't believe in any of them they scored 23 points at all, which is why we're talking about, going forward and changing the roster and everything. Before I get to this next, I'm going to do this and then we're going to talk about some recruiting because So from iPhone Kane, Cam, can we please keep Leonard Taylor in on 3rd down because he is a pass rusher, not a run stopper. We also never blitz on 3rd down, so sleepy Joe Biden got to go. That would be Kevin Steele, the defensive coordinator. We rotate on.
Where's the origin of the Joe Biden?
No, he just said that, but I can that's me putting 2 and 2 together. That's not like a standard thing that people say.
Oh, okay.
It's just that he's an older white gentleman. So
I guess.
Making that parallel for whatever reason. Leonard Taylor, like, they rotate, and Leonard Taylor has been in on 3rd downs. It's not every 3rd down, and especially if they go to a 30 front, you're going to want probably a larger physical person in at the nose, which is going to be your Darrell Jacksons of the world. But Leonard Taylor made plays against the run as well. Now he's more a penetrating player. Like, he's not going to be a Vince Wilfork where I'm going to just kind of sit there at 6'1", 340 and two gap and then just like be there as the big person in the middle. But like Leonard Taylor made plays against the run as well as, impacting the pass. So, and I think it was more a factor of like if they go to the NASCAR package where they put like all the defensive ends on the line together, you're going to want to keep that together just for, substitution patterns and everything, so you don't get 12 men on the field, which I don't think we got many of those this year, so you really want to do the substitution groups standard, and then secondarily for I get that you want to leave him in on third down, but without having gone through the snaps, because you just asked this, I'm not looking up the snaps and everything. If Leonard Taylor had played the previous 5 snaps and he's tired, hit the bench, buddy. You know what I mean? So like, I'm sure that like the fatigue part of the rotation was part of it as well. Not saying every time, but I don't think that there's a 1-to-1 situation where it was, okay, third down, Leonard Taylor's coming off the field. I think, you might want it to be a little bit different. The performance on third down, and especially last week, I think Pittsburgh went 4 for 8 on third, and they only faced 8 thirds. But yeah, I get why you might want him out there more, but like there's plenty of really good players along this defensive line. There really, really are, and I'm not really that concerned about that on the line part. Now, obviously, the defense overall needs some work, but like that one thing, if you want to be concerned with that, I understand and I empower that thought. I just don't share it.
Okay, Lauren, Brian Hartline interviewing for the Cincinnati job.
Please, Lord, get him out of Columbus. My goodness, man. Ugh. And not even saying for this year. This is a chess move. This is a macro, not micro. I'm not, and I know that I saw like Jay Wimbrow, who's like one of the videographers for South Florida Express, talking about, oh, well, if he leaves out of there, people think they have a chance, LOL, implying with Brandon Innes. No. But next year, you got Jeremiah Smith and Josiah Trader. The year after that, you got this is not about right now. This is the fact of he comes down here and gets damn near goes anywhere in America and gets pretty much whoever he wants. I would like it if he left and some of that recruiting excellence left with him so that he's not hitting 100% of the shots that he takes, and some of those guys go other places, including and especially Miami. But no, this is not about anybody who's committed in this current class. But yeah, I would love to see him getting out of there. My goodness, man.
Okay, Lauren, Cam, Brandon Innes is back in play.
And I just answered that one. So appreciate the other super chat. But yeah, I'll believe that one when I see it. There's your direct response. But believing things that we see, speaking of the University of Michigan in Ann Arbor, they just lost a commitment to your Miami Hurricanes the other day. So that is Collins Anchampong, a massive athlete, 6'7", 255 as a senior in high school. He is an African immigrant. I forget from which country, so excuse me for just saying the continent, not the country. That was not thinking that it's just Africa City, Africa. I just don't know exactly which country his parents have immigrated from. But he played one season of high school football as a freshman, and then he was working out and doing camps and things, and then he's returned to the gridiron as a senior, and is an Under Armour All-American because of his size and his potential as a defensive end. He played 2 ways in high school. He did get injured 4 games into his senior year. And Miami was a finalist for his commitment back in the summer. So if this name sounds familiar, it's because we've spoken about it here on the Wednesday night. But yeah, Miami continued to recruit him all the way through. And Anchampong, when interviewed by 247, said, the fact that I got injured actually helped Miami, because they, from a cultural standpoint, from a personal standpoint, from caring about me as a person, basically, what you hear kids saying about it's not a 4-year decision, it's a 40, 50-year decision. All those things and how I felt about Miami, because, basically you think, if I can't do this thing, where do I want to be? Do I want to be in Ann Arbor, Michigan? And do I want to be a Michigan man? And again, I have multiple family members who are Michigan men. So, and I say Michigan men because all of my family members are men who went there. But do I want to be a Michigan man, Michigan woman, or am I more of a Hurricane? Do I fit more to you? And considering that and everything, and credit to Joe Salavea and our Cristobal and the staff for flipping Mr. Anshimpong from Michigan. So yeah, Santa Margarita, one of the Catholic schools out there, is where he attends high school, and so yeah, he will be coming down to South Beach. Metaphorically, I know Coral Gables is not South Beach, but yeah, he's a 6'7", 260-ish. So he's a big defensive end. I saw people saying, he's African Gregory Rousseau. Gregory Rousseau was like 200 pounds, remember, when he got to college. But think of Gregory Rousseau-ish now, and that's the size that you're getting in Anshimpong as he comes in. So, that's a big get for Miami. He's a guy who definitely is going to be, I think, on the end of the line. But if he gets a little bit bigger, he's 6'7", he has a frame where he can be 275, 280. Who's to say that you don't flex him inside sometimes? Who's to say that you don't play him, at one of those interior positions, depending on one of the, substitution packages like we're talking about. But yeah, getting a kid of Anshimpong's caliber is really, really great. You love to see that. And again, he flipped the same day, that 2 days after beating their hated rival by double the points and being named number 2 in America. Cristobal goes and yoinks away a commitment from the University of Michigan. This is what we're talking about, man. Anybody's commitments are fair game, and we're out here and we're hunting big game. We're going to go out here. We're going to get the guys that we need to get from wherever, committed to whomever. And just again, if you lose that game to Duke with 8 turnovers, and then 3-4 days later you get Cormoney McClain to commit. And now, again, Michigan off the back of one of the biggest wins that since last year, but one of the biggest wins that they've had in a while. I mean, if you extend it past last year, one of the biggest wins they've had in 5-10 years? And then one of your top 4-star recruits, somebody comes in and yoinks. Hey, man, you love to see that. So that's one that's on the board for Miami. So we're, very excited for him. Santa Margarita Catholic in Rancho Santa Margarita, California is his school. And then Joshua Horton from Georgia, 6'4", 285 as a defensive tackle. He's committed to the University of North Carolina at this time, but he took an unofficial visit to Miami the last weekend, and multiple websites, whether that's 247, whether that's Rivals, whether that's On3, are now flipping their predictions that he's going to flip his commitment from North Carolina to Miami as well. So, and he's a defensive tackle. He's more stockily built. So he's somebody who you expect to be 290, 300 pounds eventually. And Miami does not have any defensive tackles in this class. Even though, like I said, Anshimpong might be able to flex there on some packages, Horton would be a guy who would live there on the inside. And that would be, a big boon for Miami for, high 3-star caliber prospect, who I'm sure that North Carolina would like to keep in their class. He's a native Georgian, but, coming on down here, there's, the game is afoot, guys. So again, if you were looking for results on the field and you waited all the way to the end of the season to kind of hold out hope that Miami was going to win that game and get bowl eligible, sorry for you, but this is where things are going to crank up. This is where Cristobal and his staff, whomever is on that staff, are going to do work on the trail to really rebuild this roster. So definitely be sure that you keep your eyes open and ears open and everything, because this is really where you're going to see the fruit of the labor of recruiting, where you're going to see, okay, we brought this staff in here to rebuild this program kind of however they saw fit. And this method, this mode of flipping the roster, which I think in the next 2 years, you're going to flip probably 90% of this roster from guys who are in the portal and, graduating, because, you have your seniors who are done and then going to the NFL. I would say between the 2023 and 2024 classes, somewhere between 85 and 90%, 95% of this roster, that as it was in 2022, is going to be entirely flipped over. But that has to be the goal and desire for you if you want Miami to get to where we all hope that they are, because this is going to take that kind of changing of the roster to get the kind of performance that Cristobal wants. So this is another step along that path, and we're excited to continue that. So welcome to the U. Colin Jansenpong. Joshua Horton hopefully follows suit, and there are other guys that they have been working, and we'll see if and when those come to fruition. But this is what it's all about now. Like, we already know that the game results weren't there. Always be Cruton, and that's what Mario is on. So let's see what he can do.
2 weeks from today is National Signing Day, and of course, get to State of the U with Cam
Is it only
and the staff. Correct?
Is it only 2 or is it 3?
Is it 3? Tomorrow's December, right? Are we into December?
Tomorrow is December.
Or maybe it's
no, December 21st to 23rd is the early signing.
Okay, my bad. 3 weeks.
I was about to say, like, I'm okay on some recruiting notebooks. I'm not okay on all of them. And I got Anchampong and probably Horton and a couple of others to add to the list between them. Don't rob me of my time, Mark. I need my time to write.
Okay. All right. My bad.
All good.
I made it skip a beat there for a quick second, but it's usually around the 15th, and so I just kind of gauge it's about the 1st. It must be 2 weeks. Nope, right. 3 weeks.
3 weeks.
All right, 3 weeks. 3 weeks. You got 3 weeks to study up on Cam's work and the rest of the staff there at State of the U. And what else is available there?
We got a couple things, obviously. Basketball season is ongoing. The ACC Big Ten final year game between Rutgers and Miami is actually underway right now. I haven't seen any of that because I've been here with you guys, so you go check that out. We have Mike Schiffman and Chris Picaro heading our basketball coverage this season, so very excited about that for both men's and women's. So, come on and fan with us through that. Obviously, like I said, I'm turning my focus to recruiting, so you expect to see some things from me on that. And we're, obviously still have the 2022 football season to wrap up. So, just keep your eyes and ears open as we move towards that as well. But, we're always there 24/7, 365. So please come on over and fan with us at stateoftheu.com. And Twitter is at the State of the U. And my personal Twitter is at Underwood Sports. So all those places you can interact and engage with us. Please don't ask me a thoughts question, especially for a hot take, because somebody did that. Somebody with 6 followers and 23 tweets. Hot take, blah, 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 blah. Thoughts? Not going to answer that, buddy. So just so you know, that's how I personally deal with things. But hey, come on over and fan with us either way, and we will see you soon.
Miami fans, keep in mind, of course, that you lock it down here at the Voice of College Football on the Miami channel. Also, we've got 25 team channels, so we're going crazy with content constantly. Football never stops, of course, with the transfer portal, recruiting, and everything else going on. And I just got a text from somebody who helps me with Nebraska, and unfortunately, we're getting some awful news. Mickey Joseph arrested on domestic assault and strangulation charges.
That's not great. And then there was the Jalen Kitna thing also that just broke. So a couple pieces of unsavory news for people in the world of college football. But, if I'm just going to leave it there. I'm not going to say anything else.
Cam, thank you for making this a priority and doing this for us each and every Wednesday. Folks, we hope you appreciate it. Get on back next Wednesday.
Absolutely. We'll see you guys soon.